so what seems to be like repeatable and scalable is you, right? This isn't, right? It's like more of a
Oh yeah, there's
process.
lots more of me out there. Trust me.
Yeah, yeah. So but if it's like a process, right? And someone like
Yeah.
championing and adhering to the process. So this is like possible for all, possibly, if they
Yeah.
just sort of get, find a, find an expert, find an advisor, a guide, and then they stick to define a process that's tailored to them, and then they stick to it. That's interesting.
And a lot of it is, and a lot of it, to point you made earlier, I didn't talk about that, but I do want to, it is very aspirational. Communities get stuck in their communities and they forget how great they are. And they really need someone reminding them how aspirational it could be, especially post-COVID. Post-COVID is about, so many people are worried about surviving. And I'm like, this is an awesome opportunity to just reimagine what success looks like. How do we create ecosystems for thriving? Right? Really, really succeeding and thriving. And communities are so in the weeds on surviving that part of this is aspirational.
Interesting. So COVID, you're surviving and thriving.
Yep.
Right? You are excited. What else do you think is going to be reimagined, or what should be reimagined? I guess that the list is probably long, but.
Oh God, yes. We got a lot of reimagining. If we do not reimagine schools, shame on us. The disengagement, learning loss, and soon to be dropout rates will be staggering across the U.S. and they will affect our talent development pipelines, and they will affect business. We have lots of young youth in this country that are going to have huge repercussions in social emotional learning as well. Not to mention teachers who have had to endure all of this. And if we do not blow up the institution of education and figure this out long term, shame on us. That's really, in my opinion, is really big about reimagining shared prosperity. I mean, how we engage parts of our community that have gone wholesale discounted for decades. I think is wide open for reimagining of how we do it. I think when I say that, we've always been able to do that, but I think communities want it now. They want to be part of it. They want to support it. They want to be part of it. They understand it better than they did before. So I think that's another really big place that I think people can reimagine. Yep. Living conditions, housing, development, what spaces look like. Whether they be housing or commercial, everyone knows they're already actively being reimagined.
Yep. Yeah, education seems like a big one. Sort of like very much became obvious that it's so much more than, first grade or math. It's like a social support structure. It's a food safety support structure. It like supports the entire economy because otherwise people can't go to work.
Yep.
And it's like, dude, man. And then shared economic prosperity. These are very macro, but like who sort of like leads that charge and who's accountable for like encouraging more of a shared prosperity model outside of ideally just like, so communism, of course, but.
Yeah. I am certainly not, I am certainly not recommending communism. That's right. For darn sure. I grew up on the Chamber of Commerce side. So and became much more, it's in the old 20 years ago, 30 years ago, very, very conservative, all about business, right? Government away from us. We don't want to have anything to do with it. I think over the, recent decades, even chambers of commerce across the United States understand that there's a role to play with community engagement with businesses and working through shared prosperity issues. It just is good for everybody to be able to do that. They just haven't been comfortable on how to do that at all, how you do shared prosperity. And a lot of that is, unfortunately for us, we've put ourselves in the position, a lot of that is going to have to be, in my opinion, this is strictly opinion now, a large portion of the early work of that is going to have to be really required. Not because people don't want to do it, it's people don't know how to do it. right? And so there's got to be very specific opportunities for small businesses of color to really be able to be part of the economy. And then when people start to get comfortable with that, you're not going to have to do it as much because they're incredible businesses. They just, again, what we talked about earlier, that infrastructure wasn't there for those connections to be made. And so you're going to have government involved, whether you like it or not. I don't think I think there'll always be a fight on how far or how deep that goes. But I also think the corporate America very much understands now that they didn't before, their role in playing in that, their role in supporting that. And then philanthropic work entities can also come in. So it's a shared platform by all of us. And I think there's not one perfect model. It again really depends upon the community and the demand and the need. But I do think that there's real opportunity for business. And then I do think that there's real opportunity for employment. Durham is a perfect example. One of the projects I'm working on right now, which is, if I could actually do this project, I will retire and live happily ever after and be able to meet my maker, knowing that I did something good in this world. Durham is a perfect example. We lead the state in medium wage. We have ridiculously good businesses here that pay really good wages, that are doing incredible work. We are a huge life science. It's our number one industry sector. And in COVID, the number of job announcements, new jobs coming to Durham during COVID was as much as the year before. We doubled our jobs during COVID in life science, doubled the number of jobs coming in here. Yet less than a very low percentage of Durham residents actually have those jobs. It has never been a connection. There's never been a direct connection between the two. And life science in general is not a very diverse industry sector, let alone diverse in Durham industry sector. So one of the initiatives we're working on right now with companies, with the private sector, with the technical community colleges, creating stipend programs that allow people of color to be able to go take certification programs inside Durham Tech. When I say stipends, pay them to go back to school, put their life on hold, because they can't, because they're trying to put food on the table, put their life on hold, go through a short-term certification program with guaranteed interviews for biotechnology manufacturing positions on the back end. So we've got to invest in that. You can't just say, oh, come back to school and get a certificate. You have to invest in allowing them to do that, because we haven't done that.
That's amazing. What a virtuous circle too, because it's funny, like the plays are out there. It's just getting the people who are willing to run the plays. And I feel like I not only it's like kind of similar elements from a conversation I had 2 hours ago, and then also a conversation I had like 5 years ago. So I had 5 years ago, we had launched a code school, and I talked with Made in Durham, as well as like economic development and Kevin, who was there. And it was like, oh, we had like, how do we get, how do we not only get kind of prosperity here, but how do we train our homegrown citizens? Yep. It's actually addressing this, not just piping in out of town workers. And I was like, I was a small business. I am a small business, but, entrepreneur. So I'm like, the solution is you got to have some large, magnet or vacuum of job providers, right? So is it getting SAS to open a, program up for QA that will hire 1,000 people that need this training, where they can define it, they can name it, and they can commit to it. And then you can then connect those dots and provide the pipelining and the training. But you need all these things to come together. Otherwise it doesn't work. And so you did that. So you got the kind of players all together, and the investment, but the virtuous circle piece is like the investment actually literally does pay off, because it's like, here's pay to go back and get training to then go make more money and be happier and be on a, maybe a different career trajectory. Well, it's not always more money necessarily, but to get on a trajectory that might provide more money, which is more tax-based. So, if the government takes obviously century-long viewpoint of how they're going to pay off the debt and stuff like that. So it's like, dude, over a long amount of time, that's going to pay itself off in spades. And it's same for the companies, right? They can't let's not all fight in the red ocean of, Red Sea of like competition for the same workers. If we can establish and build a pipeline. And so the conversation from 2 hours ago is really more of like, around data and which products should the government actually invest into to make open, because then you'll drive more innovation, drive more, revenue for themselves ultimately, and maybe prevent, runaway healthcare costs and improve education in your area. And it was like specifically like broadband, like make it private. Well, all they can do is get the service, the monthly fee, right? So they might not put it in a rural area.
Right. That's exactly right.
The government could collect the fee. They could collect, salary or whatever, income taxes. They could collect transactional e-commerce taxes, because now people can do stuff. People can get telemed easier. They're going to like have less incidents of like people going to state run, like ERs. So, I mean, I think, kind of that's the virtuous circle that you're working to create. So I hope that project takes flight.
Yeah, we've actually piloted it. We've done small numbers. By the way, great collaboration. North Carolina Biotechnology Center has been underwriting a ton of it for us. While they're statewide, they actually are located in Durham. So they're really, really Durham committed. The Chamber of Commerce is there, Durham Tech is there, the city's there, the county's there. We've been working on this for about a year. Actually, we started right before COVID and then pivoted into a COVID job relief kind of initiative. And then that grew out into a bigger, how do we actually change the trajectory of some of our young adults in Durham by really offering this. So we're in the process now of applying for a ton of money. Our goal is to have, $5-10 million in stipend money. We'd love to give people $10,000 stipends to go take a 3-month course. But it has to be something large, and it has to be something meaningful. And then you have the jobs on the back end. And right now there are so many needs for biomanufacturing. I don't think Durham really appreciates how much vaccine development, how much life, by the way, not just COVID, I mean, specific general vaccine development goes on in the Triangle here. And then Durham has 50% of the life science of those kind of jobs in the state, just in Durham. So it's a real opportunity for us. Those companies are really good. A lot of them have their own foundations. A lot of them have been playing in this space anyway. Now all of them have strong diversity goals. Just makes sense for them. And so and quite frankly, this is the tricky part that we've been talking about, the infrastructure. There's no infrastructure in place for companies like this to plug into. They're not going to go make it happen. But if you provide them a lane, if you provide them, look, here's we put this together. And here's the lane, and here's your role, and here's your engagement role, and here's your funding role and hiring role. They're there. They just need they need an existing infrastructure to plug into to make that work. And Durham, like a lot of communities, had it, but it was very public sector run, and kind of it was very much aligned with what resources were available coming from the government, right? This really allowed us to put a whole bunch of resources together from the community to start making this happen. So we know it can work. We've done it. We've been. I can tell you this much: we increased between September last year, 2020, we increased the number of enrollments in the biowork certificate program in Durham Tech during COVID by 155%. Now, that sounds like a big number. You should also know it's a very tiny program. So we're talking about 45, 50, 75 people, but it's still.
The fact that you said 155, meaning it wasn't like easily divisible by like 5 or 2, right? So
right.
I was like, oh, wow.
155%. So my point is, what we wanted to do is proof of concept. Like with the meager resources that we have, we can do this, we can make it work. We've done that. And we're now out writing grant applications like you wouldn't believe to try and really make this work and do some stuff. So I just use as an example of when you talk about shared prosperity, it's about infrastructure. It's about a collective we coming together, using their influence, allowing other voices, which by the way, gets really uncomfortable for a lot of people. And then creating the infrastructure that allows lanes for everybody to plug in.
Yep. I'm noticing just like patterns. So, there's this whole like community of the future too, that has infrastructure for, shared prosperity infrastructure. Like that's sort of a very advanced concept. But same with the data infrastructure, same with like, energy grid infrastructure. And these can all be sort of like community based investments, right? Just like that real estate project, right? That's sort of a little more of like a kind of a more of a traditional, meaning we were taking, I'm suggesting sort of some ideas that have a non-traditional approach, but that's still a traditional thing. Like do a better, or redevelop this thing, more interest, more people, more commerce, more tax, more community goes up. Yay. So I still want to do that, but I want to make sure I get the name before we run out of time. Well, last thing I'll say is thank you, of course, for doing this with me. I wish it was sort of like we bumped into each other and we're like, oh yeah, let's do that. But no, we had to actually reach out, and everyone's got to like kind of work a little bit harder to connect with people. And this is like, basically lived up to my every wish or every dream, because like, this is what I like to do. I like doing this. I like having these convos. I like letting it sort of spark ideas that I have. I have a couple now around sort of the smart, like infrastructure that just could be really like community based and community owned. And I'm sort of on like a kind of a tokenomics mission and trying to think about how that actually could occur. And there could be a mechanism for some of these to happen that actually rewards people who maybe take some of the earlier risks, but also, encourages and rewards even participation. So even the certificate gainer or the certificate provider,
right?
The paper printer who gives you a certificate.
Love it.
Be sort of in on this. So I think that's a great thing. I do want to collaborate with you as we think about places and spaces. If someone comes to me and is like, hey, let's do a real estate project, I'm going to like, I've been thinking like, I got to get outside of just that building before I do one. And you represent the outside that building. So I think that's
by the way, I love your new building. How's it going? Is it going good?
Yeah, it's great. I love it. I mean, I just like, if you've ever moved or whatever, I was like, for the first year, I was like, I'm never doing a real estate project again. That was too stressful. it was like having two full-time jobs, my business and this building. And it's only 16,000 square feet. We're in 9 of it or so. But actually right now we're all remote. So we've actually got a nonprofit remote learning center.
I know Kate well. Thank you for doing that, by the way.
Oh yeah, no problem. I mean, it's needed. I think our kids' school is actually in it, but we're able to work from home. So, we just keep them there so we can watch them and frustratingly watching them on Zoom. But it's going, but like, I mean, I love kind of like what that represents and like being able to sort of make a building into sort of kind of something in the community and something that like drives more stuff, right? Just kind of awareness, interest, connections, more, beers drank at the local brewery, more reason for someone else to buy the building next door and just more, I don't know. It's been it's expensive and it's stressful and it's illiquid. And so it's bad for so many reasons. I couldn't just like go remote and lose the payment. I still have the payment.
Yeah. Right.
So, but I think it's good for so many others. And that's why I kind of like have a longer term sort of interest in continuing to think about how real estate impacts kind of our communities and quality of life and can do that and be like an investment vehicle. Oh, but name of the book. Sorry. I wanted to make sure I got that written down and shared it's out.
It's called Relevant to Essential. From Relevant to Essential. You can find it on any major site, Amazon, et cetera, et cetera. It's a very short read. It's an ebook, not a book. It's an ebook. Round 2 is actually underway right now this book is very much the why. Helping people understand why the changes need to occur. And then the second book, which is that I'm on right now, is way more about the practical application. Lots of ideas for chambers to and organizations, communities to wrap their heads around how to actually execute some of this stuff. So yeah, it's actually been I've been a closet writer forever. So nothing that I would write would I want to technically, it would be way too vulnerable for me to actually publish. So this gave me an outlet to actually be able to say I published a book. So
that's great. I feel like I'm a closet content creator too, but only this. I think sitting down, like I can write like a good email pretty quickly, but if I had to write, I might get too sort of ADD for that. But it's great.
You can get lost in that loop. That's for darn sure.
Oh yeah. Yeah. But and it's cool. Like it's COVID, but I think it's the future too. It's like more people sharing experiences. I think experience sharing is a powerful tool for like personal growth. Me sharing my own experience helps me be better, but it's also like, just share it. Other people are going to gain. And if they don't, just, don't read it or don't listen or whatever. But like, there's a lot of people that are sort of trapped into their own world and don't necessarily have the ability, well, especially now with COVID, like you don't have the ability to go listen to a talk or listen to other people's sort of kind of ideas or struggles or whatever. So I think kind of the experience sharing is also another sort of, mesh network that we can build to help uplift, kind of communities here and everywhere since it's digital. But good chat. Thank you. I'm going to wrap up now. Are you good to, okay. We plugged the book. Good. I think that's going to, obviously our 3 listeners will definitely drive sales.
Yeah. I am not worried about sales on the book. Trust me. The book was a labor of love, but I do think it has been, as part of my business, has been great to get chambers. I've already gotten some chambers. Matter of fact, working with one already that wants me to take a look at their entire strategic plan through the lens of the 5 insights in the book. So that's the work that's fun.
Yep. So, okay, cool. Well, let's wrap. Thank you again. This was awesome. And I guess have a great Friday and a great weekend.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks for having me on, Nick.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Casey.